Welcome to Square Eyes, a channel where we recap, review and take a sideways look at your favourite TV shows. This video will be looking at the first episode of the 9th and final series of Inside Number 9. It's called Boo To A Goose. Let's jump straight into the recap of the episode. We open on a Merseyrail station at night, with passengers getting on board a tube carriage and taking their seats. Like you often get on public transport, the group of passengers are a mixture of people from all walks of life, uneasily pushed together for a short space of time while they make their respective journeys. Only this is Inside Number 9, so things obviously have to go wrong and it's going to get a bit dark and twisted. So it hardly comes as a surprise when the train driver announces that the next station is closed, but it does create an uneasy atmosphere among the passengers. Things don't get any more comfortable when a homeless man called Mossy enters the carriage and asks for money from the other passengers. Only one person gives him anything. The rest either make excuses or look away awkwardly. Edie makes a light-hearted comment and seems like she wants to give him something, but her husband puts her hand on her arm and tells her not to get involved. The train then comes to a sudden halt and the power cuts out. An old man starts ranting with a torch to his face, which draws some snarky remarks from Steve Pemberton's drag queen character Wilma. Then there's a shriek from the nurse, Elena, as she feels someone grab her and her bag. The light turns back on and her purse is missing. A homeless man is immediately suspected of taking the purse, and a school teacher called Raymond immediately takes charge of the situation and insists that the homeless man empties his pockets. Mossy protests, asking why he's been singled out for suspicion, and refuses to empty his pockets. The opinions of the other travellers are divided, with some suggesting it's legitimate to suspect him, but others thinking he's being unfairly targeted. This quickly helps us to see which members of the carriage are more trusting, and which ones are more cynically minded. The situation is diffused when an older, shabby-looking man offers to show his bag to Raymond. We don't get to see the contents of the bag, but from Raymond's reaction, when he gags and looks deeply troubled, we get the impression that it's something disgusting. It's quite hard to imagine exactly what it might be. Jerry volunteers himself and his wife Edith to be searched too, to show they have nothing to be suspected of. Edith doesn't seem too keen to be searched, but goes along with it anyway, as she obviously hasn't taken the purse. Emboldened by the other passengers' compliance, Raymond goes back to Mossy and asks him again if he'll submit to a search. This time there is a slightly threatening air to his request. The tension diffuses when the search reveals that Mossy doesn't have the purse on him. He looks upset about the whole incident and leaves the carriage to inform the driver about the theft. Raymond is asked to prove his innocence next, which he agrees to, turning out his pockets and explaining that no one should be above the law. The next person to come under suspicion is Finn, who has seemed nervy and paranoid up to now, talking about government conspiracies and people spying on him through the CCTV. He refuses outright to have his bag searched, which clearly makes Raymond think that Finn has something to hide. Then there's a discussion about involving the police, which prompts Wilma's friend Cleo to say she doesn't trust the police. Raymond says that doesn't surprise him, which Cleo challenges him on, as it sounds like he's making assumptions due to her skin colour. But Raymond then delivers a monologue about how the whole of society has lost respect for its institutions, including teachers, nurses, as well as police officers. The mood has now gone from Raymond seeming like a decent guy trying to sort out the stolen purse situation, to now being aggressive and confrontational. He tries again to convince Finn to open his bag, but can't get anywhere. It looks like it might get ugly until Edith intervenes and suggests that they might take a vote to see what everyone thinks on the matter. The vote takes place and a surprisingly low number of people vote in support of Finn. Raymond tries to take the bag, which Finn resists, and a scuffle breaks out that culminates in Raymond holding Finn up by the neck. Cleo shouts for someone to stop him, but everyone is frozen and the moment drags on, with nobody intervening. The stranglehold is only broken when Mossy returns from his visit to the driver's cab, which prompts Raymond to loosen his grip. The carriage then settles into a shocked and uneasy silence, as they all take in what's just happened. Cherry tries to make small talk with Edith about booking for a future theatre show, but she's too bothered about what she's just seen. She tells Jerry that she thinks Raymond is a bully. She asks Jerry why they let Raymond dictate the situation, why they let him get so aggressive without saying anything. She concludes that they were too willing to look away in order to have a quiet life. Jerry says there's nothing wrong with wanting a quiet life, which seems to spark something in Edith and makes you realise that the problems run deeper than this situation on the train. We find out that Jerry used to be a trade union agitator, taking his members out on strikes and causing trouble at the workplace for better workers' rights, but now he's a shadow of his former self. Edith misses the old version of Jerry and says that she wants more from him. Wilma cues up a Taylor Swift song and offers an earbud to Chloe to listen along with her, in what seems like a peace offering, because she feels guilty for voting for Raymond to search Finn. Cleo tells Wilma how disappointed she is in her, but Wilma carries on making silly, superficial jokes about the situation, referring to Finn as a terrorist. Cleo challenges Wilma on her opinions, but instead of backing down, she sticks to her guns and shows herself, despite being a drag queen, to be pretty right-wing in her views. When Wilma mentioned Finn being a terrorist, it set something off in Raymond, and he sprung up from his seat again to confront Finn, desperate to look in his bag, but still refused the opportunity. As his latest attempt is unsuccessful, he becomes verbally abusive to Finn and Mossy, equating Mossy's begging to stealing. Raymond's outburst creates a clear dividing line in the carriage, with Cleo standing up to join Mossy, Finn and Elena. Raymond doesn't feel too perturbed by this division though, as he points out there are more people on his side. until Edith decides that she's had enough and walks over to join the people that oppose Raymond, as she accuses him of being a bully. Finn, perhaps because he's seen so many people speak in his support, says there should be another vote, and he'll open up his bag if everyone votes in favour of that. Raymond and Jerry are the first to raise their hands, and Elena, somewhat surprisingly, moves seats and joins the other gang, voting for Finn's bag to be searched. She looks ashamed about it, but I suppose she wants her purse back, and he's now the prime suspect. Harold votes in favour too, though he doesn't seem to know what's going on really. This means the final casting vote falls to Wilma, who revels in having everyone's rapt attention while she deliberates. As she's been doing all along, she makes a joke out of it all, and uses a playground rhyme to decide between the two sides. This incenses Cleo, who uses Wilma's male name, Jonathan, and accuses her, or maybe him actually now, of seeing everything as a big joke. Cleo accuses Wilma, or Jonathan, of turning a blind eye to injustices and not living in the real world. This prompts a pretty unpleasant response, where Wilma points out that she's endured plenty of her own injustice, but her way of dealing with it is to build up her defences, in the persona of Wilma. She then uses some very unpleasant language to describe how Cleo clings on to her, before dramatically marching over to vote in favour of Finn's bag being searched. With the voting now resolved, Finn, with a sudden and dramatic shift in body language from hunched and nervous to tall and confident, throws his bag over to Raymond. Inside there is no purse, but there are some gas masks. When Raymond looks up to ask what they are, we see that Finn already has his gas mask on. While all this is going on, Harold is delivering a seemingly nonsense monologue about how the mean will inherit the earth and those that seek righteousness will be killed. It seemed like the ramblings of a madman, but maybe it isn't. Everyone in the carriage seems very confused, apart from Finn, who seems to know exactly what's going on, and Harold, who's ranting and raving. The train then pulls into a new underground station, and on the platform there are 3 passengers waiting to get on. They are Cleo, Edith and Mossy, which doesn't make sense because they're also on the train. Edith asks Jerry what's going on, and he shuffles awkwardly. Then Finn tells Raymond that he's got about 20 seconds to put on the gas masks, so Raymond quickly hands them out to the people nearby, though Jerry says that he and Harold don't need them, revealing that he knows what's going on. Edith asks Jerry about what's happening, and he tells that it's alright, just take deep breaths and it doesn't hurt. The next shot is a close-up of the air vents, making it pretty obvious that they're about to be poisoned. The masks seem to keep Raymond, Wilma and Elena safe. Harold and Jerry aren't affected, but Edith, Mossy and Cleo are all choking to death. On the platform, the new Edith, Mossy and Cleo are stood there with blank expressions, seemingly ready to take their place of the now dead people in the carriage. There are also people in full hazmat suits behind them, that I guess are the clean-up crew. Once Finn is satisfied that Edith, Mossy and Cleo are dead, he whips off his masks and returns Elena's purse to her, apologising for the inconvenience. He tells them that the theft was an inciting incident to create a scenario to test the members of the carriage to see if they were disruptors. Those that challenge the status quo too much are then swapped out with more pliant and servile clones. The 3 that were given the masks are reassured that they were safe because they were not deemed to be disruptors. They're then given a device to sign to say that nothing happened on the train, with a box ticked to say if they want to participate in similar events in the future. Finn says that Elena will be particularly sought after because she doesn't want to get involved. Elena asks what will happen to the dead people, but Finn points out that they're not dead because they've been replaced by the new versions. Only these versions won't say Boo To A Goose, which is where the name of the episode comes from. Finn then reveals that Jerry has already been replaced, which explains why he survived the gas without a mask, and also why he changed from the Union rabble-rouser that Edith described earlier in the episode. An announcement then comes over the loudspeaker to apologise for the delay to the replacement service. The play on words here is that the replacement service was for the passengers on the train, not the train itself. The episode closes with the clones replacing their originals, the dead bodies being tidied away, and the survivors of the experience having to come to terms with what they've been through. The final words of the episodes are a station announcement saying, "See it, say it, sorted," which has a different meaning in the context of this episode. I thought that this was an excellent episode of Inside Number 9. Often the twist endings of the episode involve pulling together cleverly laid clues and misdirection, but in this episode the twist was a shift in style from a whodunit to a sci-fi mystery, which I think worked well. I also think, without it being overly preachy, that this was one of their most meaningful episodes too, as there was a message behind the story. I thought the writing on this episode was really clever, managing to introduce 9 characters, tell a tense story and deliver a twist ending in a 30-minute timescale, and it managed to do all this without feeling rushed at all. The dramatic moments were all allowed time to breathe, and each character had their moments, even if they were only brief. Inside Number 9 regularly gets excellent guest actors, but it's rare to have so many in a single episode, and in this episode I thought they all did really well. Each performance brought something different to the table, particularly like Mark Bonner's intensity as a science teacher turned Grand Inquisitor. Siobhan Finneran had a more subtle job to do, anchoring down the story's moral tale as she eventually stood up for what was right against her husband's wishes. Joel Fry did well to capture the manic energy of someone paranoid about government conspiracies, but then turned on a sixpence at the end as it was revealed that he was actually the one running the government conspiracy. I thought Matthew Kelly's performance was good as Harold, with his scenery-chewing monologues, but the character was the least fleshed out of all of them, given that he was already cloned and seemed to have had his brain fried. Steve Pemberton was excellent as Wilma, firstly with the outrageous personality that you'd expect from a drag act, and then later as we saw a nastier side, that Cleo described as Jonathan, choosing that Finn should have his bag searched. I think there's something captured in this character, about how sometimes when you've been persecuted, it can make you more sympathetic to others' suffering, but other times it can make you bitter and more inward-looking. My impression of Wilma was that she was damaged and bitter, and her sharp humour and cynical worldview were her way of keeping people at arm's length. So while it was a quite larger-than-life performance from Pemberton, there were layers to it and he played it very well. Reece Shearsmith played a role that's very familiar to him, as someone who's quite aggravated about the world, a sort of middle management, tedious jobsworth. He plays these characters incredibly well, capturing that type of brooding anger that bubbles under the surface of older men when they're past their prime and feel like life has passed them by. Again, Shearsmith shows some range with this character, when at the end he shows his remorse at effectively condemning his wife to her death, so she can be replaced by a more pliant alternative, like had clearly happened to his character in the past too. The whole episode had a pretty silly premise, but the complete conviction that the actors put into their performances means that you can take it a bit more seriously, and that improved the drama. This was good because it wasn't the funniest episode of Inside Number 9. There were laughs in the episode, but that was alongside the story rather than the point of it. It seemed like one of those episodes where they're trying less hard to go for laughs. One thing I liked about this episode was how it made me question myself and how I would act in this situation. Obviously I would like to think I'd be someone like Edith who would stand up for what was right, defend Finn, and say he shouldn't have been searched. Maybe even step in at the point Raymond gets hands-on with him earlier in the episode. But would I actually do it in the moment? I honestly don't know, because who you want to be and how you behave in these pressure moments is different. The shocked look on the faces of the characters at the end of the episode tells you that. They aren't exactly proud of themselves for their role in this situation. While Finn is pleased with them for passing the test, it's hardly a badge of honour to have failed to act when someone was being persecuted. While it wasn't the funniest episode, and the larger number of characters mean that you never delve into one of them in any great depth, the ensemble cast all contribute to a great drama, which I really enjoyed. The twist was a bit unexpected, but not a complete shock because there were some clues about the sci-fi nature of the episode, which I'll get into later in the video. All in all, this was an excellent start to the 9th series, and it set a high bar for the rest of the episodes to follow. My favourite line from this episode came from Wilma, when she said, "He was clinging on to that bag tighter than Judy Finnegan to a wine glass." While the line came when we were seeing a nastier side to Wilma, and the story was getting fairly dark, this throwaway line just lightened the mood. For anyone who needs reminding, Judy Finnegan is half of the husband and wife presenting duo, Richard and Judy, and she allegedly likes a drink or two. This isn't exactly a nice kind of joke, but it's exactly the kind of caustic humour you would expect from a drag act, particularly during moments of stress when they'll be looking to relieve tension. Inside Number 9 has a long-running tradition of hiding a hair somewhere inside each episode as a little Easter egg for viewers to find. It was tricky to locate in this episode, but it looks to have been secreted on a sticker on one of the poles within the carriage. Even when you pause the video and zoom in, it isn't obvious, but it does seem to be there. The twist in this episode was a funny one, as I was expecting the twist to be that the purse thief was an unexpected passenger on the train, but as the story went along, it became less and less likely this would be the way the story was resolved, as none of the characters stealing the purse would have been all that shocking. So the twist was that it wasn't even a whodunit story at all, and in fact was a dystopian sci-fi story. This might have felt like a bit of a cheat twist if it was just dumped on us, but there were clues in the episode if you go back and look for them. The most obvious clue was a synthesized soundtrack, which doesn't fit a detective story, and is much more fitting of science fiction. Posters in the carriage all have a dystopian theme to them too, like they've been put there to promote an authoritarian government to brainwash the population. One says, "The law, it ain't fixed, don't break it," which is a slightly baffling rearrangement of the popular saying, "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." And another says, "Don't mind us, we're watching," with the subheading, "We're working hard in the background to keep you safe," a nod towards the constant state surveillance that Finn hints at when he's in character, and suggesting the operation covered in this episode is done for society's safety, not to keep control. A smaller one says "Suspicious minds stop crimes," which is illustrated with lots of pictures of CCTV cameras. Another big hint that the story isn't all that it seems comes in the song that Harold sings. It seems like the ravings of a madman when you first hear it, but the lyrics of the song include the line about a little list of society's offenders who might well be underground and who would never be missed. This feels like a direct reference to the people being taken away at the end of the episode. Alongside that, some of the clues in Raymond's newspaper puzzle may also be nods towards the twist too, particularly actor, fake and task force. There was also a reference to an earlier episode of Inside Number 9. Wilma says that she's been comparing at the Purple Sock, which is the same bar as the couple in the last episode of Series 8, The Last Weekend, met. They described the Purple Sock as an awful bar, even though it had fond memories for them. The bulk of this episode feels like it owes a huge debt to the 1957 film 12 Angry Men, which is a moral tale set in a jury room, where the members of a jury debate the innocence of a young man accused of stabbing his abusive father. The setup of frequently taking votes to gauge the opinions of the room, and people's minds changing depending on the merits of each other's arguments, are both common themes in the two pieces of work. This might be one of the most obscure bits of trivia from the episode, but when Edith suggests that they take a vote, and Jerry replies, "Very good, Edith, Democracy Manifest," I think the Democracy Manifest bit might be a reference to a viral meme from Australia in 1991, where an angry man was pulled out of a Chinese restaurant by the police and sarcastically said that his arrest was democracy manifest. The clip is also famous for asking what his charge was, eating a succulent Chinese meal. It's a silly clip, but pretty funny too. I'll put a link to it in the show notes if you're interested in seeing it. Looking ahead, the next episode is called The Trolley Problem, and a poster has been released already to promote it. Here's the blurb for it from IMDb. Blake saves a man from leaping to his death from a bridge. The poor guy probably just needs someone to talk to, but is it a good idea to bring him back home? That doesn't give us much to go on, but with the title being The Trolley Problem, I suspect there'll be an element of having to decide whether you should take one life to save many lives or something similar, as the trolley problem is a kind of thought experiment that works along those lines. It should be an interesting subject for Inside Number 9 to get his teeth into. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe if you've enjoyed it. I'll be posting another for the next episode soon, so subscribing is the best way to make sure you don't miss it. It's also a good way to let me know that you've liked this video and want me to make more. Goodbye.